How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jason. I'll be your host on this CFL talk show, Hussey's Huddle. In this video, we're going to talk about a team I haven't really had the chance to talk about a lot since I started the channel, and that is the BC Lions. And why they're just, for me, the most difficult team in the CFL to pin down going into 2021. But really quickly before we get started, if you want to support the channel, the best way to do it is by hitting that like button and subscribing to Hussey's Huddle for more CFL content just like this. I appreciate each and every one of your support. And with that said, let's talk a little bit about the BC Lions. So first, I'll start by going over what I feel very strongly about with this BC roster. And then I'll point out the areas on this team that I have some questions about. So starting with the strengths, my number one strength for this team is the receiving core. They have a really good number one target in Brian Burnham. I think he's arguably the best receiver in the Canadian Football League when you combine all the different things that he brings to the table: contested catches, yards after the catch, runs great routes, runs a complete route tree, does everything you need out of a number one guy. Then they brought in Dominic Grimes in the 2020 offseason. We have not seen him play on this BC team yet. He's going to provide a lot of size to the perimeter of this BC offense, something that they were kind of missing in 2019. And then they also have very good complementary options in Lamar Durant and Shaq Johnson, who are both also Canadian, which helps them with a ratio-wise because they can start two Canadian receivers and use Americans at other positions of need. Overall, this receiving core is one of the areas of this team you should really be confident in if you're a Lions fan going into 2021. The number two thing I feel strongly about with this BC Lions roster is the potential explosiveness in the backfield and in the return game. This is largely due to 3 off-season acquisitions. They bring back Chris Rainey, who has a proven CFL track record as both a returner and a backup running back. Rainey has also played in BC before, which makes him a near seamless fit. They also signed Lucky Whitehead from Winnipeg, who likely factors in as an interesting depth piece in this receiving core, but also has explosive return ability if the team deploys him that way. Obviously, that's his background from his time in the NFL with the Dallas Cowboys, but reportedly he wanted a bigger role as a receiver, and I'm guessing he's going to be filling one of those starting receiving spots. I don't know where he factors into that group, but he's going to be used on offense as well, and I think maybe in the jet sweep game, he's going to be a big factor for this BC Lions offense. And then finally, the signing of Shaq Cooper from Edmonton is interesting because I think the previous starting running back for BC, John White, was extremely steady and consistent, while Cooper just has a handful of CFL starts under his belt. But on the other hand, Cooper stands out when I watch him as clearly one of the league's most explosive and athletic runners. And with that in mind, I think the swap of White for Cooper is worthwhile in an attempt to make BC's running game more dynamic, hit the outside lanes, take the stress off this offensive line a little bit, and I just think that's a really smart acquisition to bring in Shaq Cooper for BC. So overall, I think all of these offseason additions make the ceiling of this BC team potentially much higher. And then the number 3 thing I feel very strongly about with this BC team going into 2021 is the defensive secondary. When you examine the back end of this BC defense, it's pretty impressive. You have a pair of perennial all-star contenders in halfback TJ Lee and corner Gary Peters, who both played well in 2019 despite the team's disappointing results. But then they made one of the best moves in the entire CFL offseason in signing Marcus Sayles, who was a 2019 All-Star with Winnipeg before spending the last year on and off of NFL rosters. Sayles is a very smart playmaking DB that quite simply just covers a lot of grass back there in the middle of the field. I think he's probably going to start at safety for this group, but we'll see where he ends up in this BC lineup. Then rounding out the coverage unit, you have a couple of guys in Anthony Chaffee and Boseko Lukumbo that have the versatility to play some linebacker and DB as the team sees fit. And then finally, the last guy I want to point out is Victor Gamboa, who might be the team's starting cornerback opposite Gary Peters in 2021. I mostly liked what I saw about Gamboa in limited action in 2019, and I'm really excited to see if he can build on that in 2021. Ultimately, this group has a chance to be the CFL's best defensive back unit, and I definitely would not be shocked if this is the driving force of this team, and especially this defense next season. Now moving on to some areas that are not necessarily weaknesses, but that I have some pretty big questions about. Starting with, number one, the offensive line. Any BC Lions fan witnessed just how poorly this unit played in 2019, and on paper I still have a lot of questions. The fate of this unit in 2021 largely rests on a trio of veterans that must perform better for this offense to take the next step. Joel Figueroa was named the team's nominee for most outstanding offensive lineman in 2019, but honestly, he didn't even have a good season in my opinion, especially when you compare that to the level that he has played in the past in the CFL. That guy's been in the league for a long time, and I don't think that was one of his best seasons. Guard Suk Chung was another guy who was a major disappointment in 2019 in his first and injury-riddled first season in BC, and he must provide stability to this interior offensive line for them to have any shot of having an established running game up the middle, and to prevent that immediate pressure, because they were getting beat right up the middle a lot of the time in 2019, and you just can't have that. It just throws off the entire play when you're getting pressure right up the middle of your offensive line. And then the third guy is tackle Riker Matthews, who has yet to debut for the team after coming over from Hamilton in 2020. He needs to play the way he played for the Tiger Cats in the 2019 regular season, rather than his dreadful performance in the Grey Cup while attempting to block Willie Jefferson. I believe, by my count, he gave up 3 sacks in that game, as well as numerous pressures. He was one of the major reasons why Hamilton just got embarrassed in that game. Simply said, this unit held the team back in 2019, and it will do the same this year if there aren't significant improvements. The number 2 thing I have questions about with this BC team is the run defense. I'm concerned about the lack of beef in the Lions' front 7, especially after Micah Johnson left after not even playing a down for the team in 2021 free agency. Their starting defensive ends, J.R. Tavai and Chris Kasher, are good pass rushers, but they can be moved around in the run game at times by opposing offensive linemen. And finally, it's unclear what the team will choose to do at middle linebacker after the departure of Jordan Herdman-Reed. Presumably, my guess would be that 2020 number 1 overall pick Jordan Williams will play that role, but we will see if he is ready to physically take on blockers at the point of attack as a rookie. Still, in terms of weaknesses, run defense certainly isn't the worst to have, but it's still worth mentioning as we go forward and into the 2021 season. And then number 3 is not really a weakness per se, but it's just something that a lot of this BC team rides on. I think is the number 1 most determining factor of how this team ends up doing in 2021. And that is, what version of Mike Riley are we getting? I am definitely confident in Mike Riley as a starting quarterback, don't get me wrong, but there just seemed to be something missing from previous years in his debut season in BC. Largely, a lot of that can be blamed on surrounding circumstances, but still, this team will need Riley, who is now 36 years old, to play like the league's highest paid player if it has any chance of bumping a team like Calgary or Winnipeg or Saskatchewan from the playoffs in 2021. And that's what they're going to have to do to have success this coming season. And with those things said, that is going to be the end of today's video. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for watching. Once again, my name is Jason. If you want to support the channel, the best way to do it is by hitting that like button or subscribing to Hussey's Huddle for more CFL content just like this. I want to hear everybody's thoughts in the comments section about what do you expect out of this BC team going into 2021. And with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.